Do not put your best people on new business pitches. The most respected creative people will probably do something too original, too controversial to be acceptable to a conservative group of clients at your first meeting. Put people who consistently get the agency out of trouble on it. Their work may not be as dazzling, but it will be intelligent, and the client will relate to the idea better. Finally, present on Tuesday. Assuming there are 5 pitches on each day of the week, by Friday, the client will be so overwhelmed with the quantity and quality of work that he'll find it impossible to make a decision. His thinking may go like this: Monday, great meeting, great work, nice people. Tuesday, great meeting, great people, nice work. Wednesday, good meeting, very fresh work, lovely young people. Thursday, yet another great meeting, nice people, fine work. Friday, another meeting. I don't know. The odds are that he will pick the Tuesday presentation, the second meeting, because he was still clear-headed then. Monday was too early, nothing to judge by. Wednesday and Thursday were like eating too much chocolate. Friday, feeling sick. Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. My name is Thomas Hunt. Today is July 5th, 2018, the day after the 4th of July. That was just a short reading from It's Not How Good You Are, It's How Good You Want to Be, the world's best-selling book by Paul Arden. He's an advertising man. He knows how to advertise. He did the famous Volkswagen ad in the 60s, think small, genius. But you see how simple genius, like that kind of unique, special genius of making things simple. But we're going to get right into it today and find out what's been going on in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin, is down recently, but now it's back up, is up 0.53% in the last 24 hours, or maybe even the last 10 minutes. With a last of 6,635, a high of 6,707, and a low of 6,543. That's $1 for 15,101 Satoshis. Our top story: Wall Street's Tom Lee cuts his year-end Bitcoin price target by about 20%. Any return approaching his $20,000 forecast for Bitcoin by the end of 2018 would be up almost 200%, the CEO of the Fundstrat co-founder argues. Since its most recent top around 9,800 in May, Bitcoin has lost about 30%. However, Lee remains undeterred, citing the rising cost of mining Bitcoin that could restrain the supply and push prices higher. As Lee says in the articles, Bitcoin has historically traded at 2.5 times its mining cost. It's not out of the question that it could be over $20,000 by the end of the year. And if we look at the mining costs, the reason Bitcoin looks so good here is because the cost of mining is around $7,000 per coin, and the difficulty is rising. Therefore, by the end of the year, Bitcoin should be $9,000 a coin. Or actually, mining Bitcoin costs should be $9,000 a coin. If the price to mine Bitcoin's rising, the idea is that the price of Bitcoin will follow. Bitcoin's price rally hits speed bump in push to 7K. As we keep seeing, we're having trouble getting over that 6,800 barrier. But let's get more analysis from CoinDesk. Bitcoin needs to overcome a key technical resistance to keep the short-term bull market going, technical studies indicate. The cryptocurrency rose to $6,785, the highest level since June 22nd, and looked set to test the psychological hurdle of $7,000 a coin. However, the bulls failed to cross 67.54, the 23.6% Fibonacci retracement of the drop from 9990 to 57.55 on a daily basis. Further, a detailed look at the charts show that they're working around the moving average lines and the Bollinger Band, working in unison to put brakes on the Bitcoin price rally. A convincing break above the resistance need to happen soon, or a price pullback could be in the offering. Let's go straight to the view. An aggressive move above the resistance zone of 6,717 would add credence to the bullish setup in the 4-hour and daily chart and would allow a rally to 7,000. The focus would shift to the bearish RSI divergence seen in the 4-hour chart. If Bitcoin fails to cut through the resistance zone of 6,717 in the next few hours, prices could fall back to 6,330. A close below 6,275 would abort the bullish view. Crypto market sees small slump, but Bitcoin keeps above the $6,500 threshold. Excellent. And finally, the headline of today's article, the clickbait you've all been waiting for, from the New York Post, the popular New York tabloid. That's right, it's a tabloid. John Crudele, nice name. Why Bitcoin may soon be worth nothing. And that's right, this article is so long. This man is such a massive genius. Look at the incredible length of this incredible article, the facts that he packs in, the quotes, the sources, the links, the experts. There are so many quotation marks in this incredible section. I'm going to read you the entire article so that you will know why the New York Post believes Bitcoin may soon be worth nothing. No doubt this man is a technical genius. No doubt this man has studied at computer science academies across the university world. Here it is, his amazing work from the New York Post. I thought we'd finally get rid of Bitcoin, but the fake currency, which I like to call Bitcoin, just won't fade away. Bitcoin's price rallied to $6,600 yesterday, but it had been well under $6,000 last week. Even at $6,600, Bitcoin is still worth 70% less than it was at the beginning of the year, or 600 times what it was a few years ago. I use the term worth cautiously because Bitcoin is really worth nothing since it's backed by nothing or no one, like the US dollar. It's a confidence game that has value only because people are convincing other people that it's worth something. Got it. Ponzi scheme, constant confidence game, fraud. Anyway, Bitcoin is headed for a value of zilch. It's only a matter of when. That's it. That's the whole article. They published this in a newspaper. They published this on their website. There are no quotes. There are no sources. There are no links. I don't even think there's a thought in here. This guy just doesn't like Bitcoin, and for some reason, they let him write for this newspaper. Let's read some other articles by John Crudele. All right, John Crudele doesn't like clean meat. He says the network for comfortable New Yorkers is obscene because he's going to fight the pricing values of Manhattan. Let's see. There's only a certain amount of land in Manhattan. So the value of the land is going to keep going up. So the amount of money you're going to have to make to live there is going to keep going up. So I don't see anything obscene about that. There's nothing obscene about the price of land in Manhattan or London because people have figured out, just like San Francisco, there's only so much land there. And yeah, if you want to live there, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. Okay, employment numbers, will he leak them? Okay, so I'm not seeing a lot of Bitcoin articles. I'm not seeing a lot of tech articles or science. Allstate's pay per mile deal may be too good to be true. Oh, this guy's good. Facebook has a real problem with disturbing content. The internet is scary. Reader shares how tragedy turned into a blessing. The reason why millennials must be such bad tippers. Oh, this guy's got the facts. He never writes about Bitcoin, though. How long has he known that Bitcoin is a, as he says here, got it, Ponzi scheme, confidence game, fraud? He never told these people. He never told these good people in his little 3-paragraph columns. Expect another interest rate. Here we go. June 11th, 2018. Bitcoin still can't be trusted. John Crudele. Oh, 50% drop. Oh, confidence will erode. No one can legally prop it up. Nothing's backing it up. This is great. It doesn't have the backing of any country. This is so funny. What's backing up He says right here, you can't turn it into jewelry like gold, and you can't put it on someone's finger like a diamond. Those are two of the worst uses for gold and diamonds that I've ever heard. At least tell me something like you need diamonds for, fancy equipment or for drilling or something, and you need gold for computers. Tell me there's at least a smart reason, not just like if it was a fad, like the color purple. The color purple is not as valuable as it used to be. Sorry, not the book, the actual color. When they used to make king's robes, they would dye them purple because purple was the hardest color to do. So no one else had purple. So if you were wearing purple, you were the king. Uh, that used to be a thing, and that's not a thing anymore. We can make as much purple as we want. But he's like saying, oh, it's because you can make clothes out of the purple. That makes it still valuable. But yeah, that's your clickbait headline of the day. I thought it was worth it. You guys can check out this article right here on the New York Post. Why Bitcoin may soon be worth nothing. Funny side note, when I first saw this headline, I really thought it said noting. I thought, why Bitcoin may soon be worth noting. And I was like, yeah, I think it will soon be worth noting because it's going to be an incredible currency for the world. So yeah, it's worth noting. Well, let's move on. Three bullish signs return for Bitcoin. Is the comeback sustainable? What are the three bullish signs? I'll find out in more pages. Who cares, Forbes? House movers accidentally steal $10,000 in Bitcoin, arrested by police. This is a fun story. Moron movers steal $10,000 in Bitcoin without moving it. Movers turned thieves helped themselves to an iMac in order to compensate for what they considered an unfair work rate, clueless to the fact that the computer held $10,000 in Bitcoin. In Santa Clara, California, a family hired a couple to help them move. And when they refused to negotiate or set the price, the movers helped themselves to a TV and an iMac computer by force. Renegotiate the set price. Yeah, sounds like once again, yeah. Drove off in a silver Lexus SC400, belaying the question, why would a luxury car driver be taking ad hoc moving jobs? This is very strange. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. It sounds like some rich people hired some other rich people to move stuff for them, and then they decided to steal their computer. And it turned out it was a much more valuable computer than they thought. That's why you should always have backups of your private keys. These people, instead of chasing them down or running after them in the street, whatever they ended up doing, they could have just gone to their backup, cashed them out, moved the Bitcoin to a different address, and da 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 da, there's no more Bitcoin on the computer. The best part about Bitcoin is that you can make a backup and that you can restore from the backup. A lot of people have talked about their safe was stolen and they said, oh, the thieves had our safe. So we got our backups. We went down to the bank. We got them out of the safe deposit box the next day and we moved our Bitcoin to another address. And now suddenly the thieves have stolen an empty safe. So Bitcoin's pretty amazing that way. Whereas good old John's gold or diamonds, they would be in the safe. You'd never get them back. Once someone steals your gold or diamonds, it's gone. You can't even have a backup copy. How is that good money? I don't see it at all. How India choked its cryptocurrency ecosystem to near death. I like the wrestling implication of this headline. They're holding them down. They're choking it. They're going to choke it out. It's got a wrestling feeling to it. Indians hooked on cryptocurrency have seen it all in the last year. And once again, this is the same old pattern. The government doesn't understand it. The government cracks down on it. The government realized that the crackdown isn't working and they're actually spreading more information about Bitcoin. And now they're trying to ban Bitcoin. Good luck with that, India. The more you tighten your grip, talking, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. And more tabloids from the express.co.uk. Bitcoin price live. Crypto hit by 51% attack as Bitcoin criminality myths are dismissed. I like the second part. Alleged 51% attack for Syscoin, which apparently didn't happen. And again, the media still doesn't understand 51% attacks. Still. And let's get to that thing about the criminal aspect is going away. I don't see anything about that. Criminality myths are dismissed. no myths in here. Oh, well, whatever. The criminality myths are that you can only use Bitcoin for drugs or only use it on the Silk Road. And the media loves to say that, and it's not useful. But it's useful for buying illegal drugs or raw milk or whatever you want on the internet. So Bitcoin is money you can use to buy the things you want. And it doesn't matter what the things you want are. That sounds like better money. That sounds like if you had to upgrade your computer program, you'd be like, I want the computer program that works everywhere, or I want the computer program that only works somewhere. It's like using a Discover card. Do you like being annoyed? Excuse me, do you take Discover? Of course not. Do you take Discover? Of course not. Do you take Discover? What? That's what it's like. That's what these other currencies that won't let you buy what you want, that won't let you hold your own money, that won't let you make a backup copy for safekeeping. These other currencies are inferior to Bitcoin. Dollars, pounds, euros, francs, Deutschmarks. Some of them already gone, all of them inferior. How your smart fridge and TV might be mining Bitcoin for criminals. I don't really care about this story, but I love this headline. This is living in the future. Your TV and fridge now have chips in them that are smart enough that they can mine for Bitcoin. Now, what you're saying is, why aren't they mining Bitcoin for me? Well, really, for you, they would probably give you a few pennies on the dollar, right? But for these hackers, if they can get 1,000 of these fridges, they could get 1,000 pennies. If they could get 100,000 fridges, they could get 100,000 pennies. So yes, it makes sense for hackers to mine with smart fridges, but it doesn't make sense for you. Does it make sense for the fridge manufacturers maybe just to put this on anyway? Or I don't know, just overload their hardware, make their chips run more. It's probably going to wear out your smart fridge faster. But remember, your smart fridge hasn't been tested. No one knows how long it's going to last anyway. And all of our stuff is made to break down and crash after 3 to 5 years. So your smart fridge is no different, whether it's mining for Bitcoin or not. We're taking donations here on the World Crypto Network. We've got Bitcoin and Bitcoin. Also, these new things called Ethereum, Litecoin, Doge, Dash, Vert, and Ethereum Classic. Donate now to the QR codes on your screen. We're also celebrating the World Crypto Network Patreon and the Mad Bitcoins Patreon, where your donations make this show possible. We're trying to have a Q&A over on the Mad Bitcoins Patreon. If you subscribe to the Mad Bitcoins Patreon, you can take part in the Q&A and ask questions right here for as little as $2 a month. That's cheap. And we had a request from the chat to cover the Syscoin activity. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit from this article from the Next Web. Syscoin, suspicious blockchain activity unrelated to Binance trading anomaly. And as Syscoin explains, there was a series of odd patterns on its blockchain on Tuesday. But the Syscoin blockchain has not been hacked or compromised in any way. What took place was a combination of events that made the situation more sensational than it needed to be. The situation escalated after some users noticed that the network had processed blocks with output values larger than Syscoin's entire token supply, raising suspicions that its blockchain might have been compromised. At the same time, it was discovered that one Sys unit was trading for 96 bitcoins, $634,000 at the time of writing, on the exchange Binance. Given how closely these two events occurred, there were speculations that these were correlated, but the Syscoin team now explains this wasn't the case. The large output value blocks came due to miners' policy. More than a week ago, Syscoin released a mandatory update to fix a governance superblock fee calculation bug for its masternodes, miners, and software client. That's a lot of buzzwords. July 3rd was the last date for the miners and others to upgrade to the new version. If they didn't, they couldn't be mining anymore. Large miners that upgraded to the new version set higher fees above the usual rate, and the smaller miners were left picking up transactions that they won at a lower block fee. This led to hundreds of transactions bunched up in the large output value blocks. While Syscoin says this is expected behavior, they did notice some suspicious activity. A wallet with 46 million Syscoin started sending withdrawal requests during this period. The withdrawal chained as unconfirmed transactions on the blockchain and quickly added up to a large amount, possibly resulting in either of the two largest blocks we saw. This is when the Syscoin team decided to ask exchanges to temporarily halt Sys trading on their platforms. Bittrex and Polynex immediately complied, but Binance tried to identify the problem first. Okay, so there's a mistake right there. If somebody sends you a halt, you gotta halt, right? This is a crazy business with lots of money going on. And yeah, you want to be the one that's still open. But at the same time, if you're the one that's still open and you get hacked for $100 million or something, awful idea. So yeah, if you receive a panic message, it's time to shut it down. So then same thing. Syscoin team says once their investigation concluded, it was not a glitch in the blockchain. They said the exchanges could continue. They say the large blocks were due to the software update, but they don't know what caused the odd trading activity on Binance. Binance reset their API keys following the incident. Syscoin points out that Binance users reported 7,000 Bitcoin removed out of the exchange at the same time as the unusual trading of its coins. It also stated that some users in the community reported their Bitcoin balances on Binance were negatively affected during that time. However, the company has said that it can't verify if the two activities were related. It's worth noting that while Binance has acknowledged its role in the Syscoin debate and launched a user security fund in this response, it hasn't given any details on how the unusual trading of Syscoin actually happened. We've contacted Binance, but no representatives were made available for the comment at the time of this writing. It's time Binance speaks out. So it doesn't sound like the Syscoin blockchain was hacked. It sounded like they had a strange update causing some strange blocks. And at the same time, there was a trading anomaly on Binance. More information to come if Binance ever speaks about it. I just want to do a quick check of the Twitter. Yesterday was Independence Day. I enjoyed the old movie Independence Day from 1996. It was fun. And I put out the old speech that I did as a Mad Bitcoins doing the Independence Day speech. There we are right now. Will Bitcoin still be worth nothing? Inconceivable. Inconceivable is right. I'm trying out Firefox on my phone and on my web browser, though right now it looks like I'm still in Chrome. I got to update the desktop now. Enjoying the new features. Firefox has a reading mode on desktop with a computer voice that will read the article aloud. Also, a nice sepia dark mode in reading mode. Hide images is a good button for mobile in low bandwidth situations, and it also has reading mode on mobile. We're checking out mobile Firefox. It's got a night mode and it's ad blocking. I like that ad blocking. That's a good idea. Went to Vegas last night, checked out the D where you can always buy Bitcoin at an ATM or use Bitcoin at the cafe or to rent a room. People seem to love this CoinCloud Bitcoin ATM with a cow on it. If you work at CoinCloud, reach out to me. I'd love to get a deal, maybe a referral code like WCN when people use the ATM. Maybe CoinCloud could donate a little bit to us. But just saw this Bitcoin ATM. This one's at the Plaza. The Plaza Hotel is at the end of the old strip in downtown Las Vegas. It's the one that used to be featured in all of the movie shots before they put that roof on Fremont Street. And of course, they also take Bitcoin at the Golden Gate Hotel and Casino down the street from the D, also owned by the same company. And we got more on Twitter for later. But for now, I wanted to run a speed test live because I was curious to see if the speed would be different. Also, I restarted my camera this morning, and that seems to have fixed it. My camera technically is a good quality webcam, but I think it's more about too many windows open, too much going on, not enough bandwidth, something like that. But we're going to open up the calls right now. Maybe I'll drink a little bit of water. But if you're out there right now and you'd like to call us on Skype Network, all one word, we are open right now. And I had an interesting message on Skype. I got a message from Cortana, the fabled Microsoft assistant. And it's very creepy to get a message from an AI. And of course, the AI wants to read all of my messages and interact with me. And I said no. And then it responded very humanly. So I'm totally creeped out by Cortana. Most of what I know about her, I hear from the great Swift on Security Twitter account. where Taylor Swift teaches me about computers and security. But we're also joined by Ricardo this morning from Rico Coin Report. How's it going, Ricardo? What do you think? Did you have a good 4th of July over there in Paris?
The 4th of July was as eventful, I'm reckoning, as it is in America. And I remember 4th of July when I was in the States, it went off for like a month. You'd always know the 4th of July because it was always the 1st of July. People were going already. It was uneventful, honestly. I had to work. It was the quietest night, to be honest with you. And even in Central, because I work in Central late at night, and then I get off work and take the train home. And you know, you have your occasional drinkers. Everybody was watching football. That's what I remember. Everybody, you could hear it in the streets. Everybody was just staring at a screen at the bars, and you know, everybody's just smoking away.
Yeah, here we went for a little drive around 9 o'clock, and that's when a lot of the official shows were supposed to go out. But there was a ton of unofficial shows because apparently in the town of Pahrump, Nevada, you can buy as much fireworks as you want. So these were big ones. They went up into the sky, and there's like one there, one there, one there, one there. There was just everywhere. So they were crazy with the fireworks. It's driving my dog nuts. He can't figure it out. He thinks World War III has opened up. He is all in a trauma center. He's freaked out, but he's doing better today. But again, they have leftover fireworks. That's the real problem with this is they don't shoot them all off last night. And like you're saying, yeah, they start on the 1st or whatever, and then yeah, they'll be doing more shows and more shows. I don't know if there's official shows, but yeah, people love fireworks.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I can tell you some stories about fireworks. I'll say one thing. I live by these Asian people, and they always brought in fireworks that were from China, and they'd light them off. And you knew they were being lit off because you'd hear the gunpowder hit the roof and just kind of roll down your roof. And I always wondered, I wonder whose house is going to catch on fire first, you know? It's a bit dry out there. It wasn't in California, but still.
And they had one last night in South Sacramento. I still get the local news, and they said, yeah, South Sacramento house burned down because of fireworks. And we pretty much get the same story. I saw this meme going around. It was a picture of a dynamite with a lit fuse, and it was like, within 24 hours, somebody is going to be missing a finger. And it was like, it was painful. It was a painful meme, but it was also true. Like, fireworks are not safe. I don't set them off. I don't think it's a good idea. If I was going to do it, I'd have a professional do it remotely with the fuses and the timers and everything, right?
I'm all about watching them. I had an experience where I worked at a restaurant on the 4th of July, and it was on the water. It was a floating restaurant, and you could walk across the water from boat to boat, honestly. But I don't like being too close to the fireworks. I don't mind them. I'm one of those people that, you know, I remember watching my neighbors' dogs because they're all old and they'd all go to like somewhere for a vacation, and I'd watch their dogs. I don't mind fireworks, but I don't really like loud explosions. You know, it's a beautiful thing, but if I can see them from afar, I'm all about it. You know.
I had a great experience years ago. I was working for the Sacramento River Cats. I was doing this computer that would track the pitches, and I would tell it what happened. And you had to be 99% accurate. So of course, it was kind of impossible, and I was always get yelled at. But I was up in the press box, and they did fireworks every Friday. So every Friday I had my camera, and I could take my cool pictures of the fireworks with the long exposures and making shapes and stuff. And I had a great time, and I got to see fireworks every week. So that got me way into it. And then, of course, Burning Man, they put off a ton of fireworks every year. And then if you ever go to Walt Disney World, fireworks every night. I don't know if they still do it, but back in the day, it was crazy. You look out the hotel window every night, 8 o'clock, Magic Kingdom. Every night, 9 o'clock, Epcot Center. Every 10. I don't know if they still do that. It's kind of a waste. It's a lot of excess. But that was the 90s or whatever. I guess fireworks might have been cheaper. But it's great. I like some fireworks. I think they're fun.
Yeah, I don't mind fireworks. Speaking of fireworks, the reason I'm wearing a red shirt, everybody, is because I saw the Bulls, and not the Bulls, the Chicago Bulls. I don't mean the Bulls, guys. I'm talking about the market. So let's get back to cryptocurrency, which I saw the Bulls, and I've had my time with them, and now I'm watching the market. So that's where I'm at, and I'm always going to be dollar cost averaging or euro cost averaging. But I get my paychecks on Friday, first of all, and second of all, I I hold out for quite a few notifications, like, you know, confirmations, as I like to say. And I don't like to share my graphing with people because I always feel like, you know, you feel, what's it called, self-conscious, you know, that people are seeing different lines and they're not reading it the same way. So I don't really share that, but I just like to look at it from a broad perspective and just my opinion on it. And I always tell people, you know, this is just my opinion. It's like when you give people betting advice with the dogs or the horses or whatever you're racing, or, you know, if you're playing roulette or something.
It's never any good, because if they win, they don't give you a cut, and if they lose, they get mad at you. So yeah,
Yes.
there's no winning in it. Yeah.
The house wins.
I'd also say, yeah, with the Bitcoin thing, it can be so tough because okay, so my family's starting to get into Bitcoin finally, you know, years later, after they missed the boat and everything, after they're, oh, you know, those kids, they seem to do what they want now. Maybe we should try that. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea. So you tell them things and you're like, hey, you know, I think, you know, this new coin could be good, or maybe you should try this one. Or, 'cause, you know, they're looking for that. And then there's like, if there's any roadblock in the way, they just give up. It's like, oh, you have to learn how to use a new exchange if you want to get the new crazy coin. And oh, you'll have to send your money to a, you know, a hole and bring it back and maybe get a wallet, you know, and all these things. And they're like, I can't do that. And it's like, well, you're not going to make any money. And you're not listening to me. Why are you even asking for my advice? So if you ask for someone's advice, listen to it. If it has like hurdles or roadblocks, you're going to have to work through those because the person you're talking to already has. And if you respect their knowledge, if you want to listen to them, you need to listen to them. And with these crazy altcoins and stuff, a lot of it is just being early. If you're there early, you get a bag full. And if you dump them before the thing dumps, you can be a winner even on something that goes up and down. And that's what all the traders will tell you. They're all like, yeah, I made so much money on this and that. And you're like, but it went up and down. And like, yeah, but I got it here. It went to here and I sold because I'm not attached to it. They're not, you know, they're traders. They don't care. You could do that. But you have to be early, and you have to be early to the sell. And these people just aren't there. They're on, and you also have to do some work. I mean, if you're going to make any money, you're going to go read about something, you're going to research it, you're going to take a bet on something that's unpopular, something that no one else knows about. That's when you have more information than they do. If you go out and get that information, you can make that happen. But if you don't, you're just betting on random things, which slightly better than a casino, though. Still slightly better.
Agreed. Especially if you believe in it, and it all pays off. Day trading is hard work. It rarely pays off, and when it does, there's no one around to see it, you know. So, and it usually just fills in holes from where you lost. So, I've had like 2 or 3 months just doing that, maybe more, and it's not easy. I think that everybody who gets into altcoins will experience it eventually. And there is a thing called beginner's luck. So we'll just start with that. And I think you can't ignore the altcoins. I wouldn't be the first person to get on a pedestal and tell you what to buy, because I really don't think that's the best way to go. But I think if everybody makes their own bets, it's like when you go out to the races, you know, your day starts, whether it's your work or whether it's your social, you know, some people trade for social. They're like, I have people who I know who trade in Miami, and it's a very social crypto scene down there. And there's a lot of South Americans. And long story short, that's where I first started learning about Bitcoin. And I think that trading is cool, your altcoins, but it just depends what kind of person you are in the market, you know. And you get to that point where you're like, okay, I can swing a little bit of Bitcoin, you know. And I just wrote a tweet about this to Max yesterday about the altcoins and the shitcoins. And if you guys want to go check that out, you can go check on Twitter, Rico Report. You can see what I said. But I was pretty much just saying, you know, in the end, you're trading for the Bitcoin. So it is what it is. All right, it is what it is.
Now we're seeing some good comments here in the chat. Crypto Sasquatch says, I was going to buy the hottest new asset class in the world, but then I wanted an Xbox. So I agree. You do have to make trade-offs and changes. And Metal Gear MK3 says he's got a bag full of Cardano and he's still holding. So whatever it is, all the altcoin stories are kind of the same. Like if you believe in it early and you get it for 2 cents and it goes to 20 cents and you keep holding and then it goes to 80 cents and then maybe you should think about getting out of there. But
Well,
even then, the Ethereum goes to 300 or 1,000 or whatever. So who knows? But if you get in early and if you get out at the top, you can win, even if it's a short market where eventually it just goes right back down.
yeah, well said. Well said. I like to, when I don't know the market, I like to stick to what I do know and what is the most valued, and as time goes, the most regulated. I believe once regulation set in, something that was on the World Crypto Network earlier that Andy was talking about is when these people who are CEOs and they start investing publicly, then you better know that the companies that they work for are going to be investing as well. So maybe they will buy high, but that's because they can afford it. And the opportunities are just endless. And so many people are stuck on the price. And I like to look at the price. Don't get it wrong, because we all have money we would like to invest. But the technology is beyond measures. So that's the most important part. And what I said about opportunities is each person can go out there and learn about this technology. And I did think about this when I first started kind of getting into it, maybe like 3 or 4 months into the idea of cryptocurrency and really becoming more comfortable with it. That maybe one day it was just this theory that we're all going to eventually start creating our own currencies, whether it's in an area that we live in, for that small region, or for specific companies that you purchase through, and that's what you're going to be constantly using. And if this is just the beginning of the party, then I want to be this is the gold rush, sorry, this could be the next Yukon or the next California, but who knows.
And I did see some other news recently on Twitter. I saw Adam Back had retweeted. Let's see, here it is. He says he called this an abusive miscarriage of justice based upon the legal fiction courtesy of the MPAA lobby, the U.S. and New Zealand's weak judicial independence, bending to political and industry influence. And for those of you who haven't heard, Kim.com, it looks like he may be extradited to the United States. The New Zealand Court of Appeal has said that it is okay for the United States to extradite Kim.com, although it does say with a different legal analysis, one of which thought there was no copyright infringement at all. Remember, Kim.com ran the website Mega Upload back in the day, and Mega.com, other things like that. And used to be able to upload files there, but they said they were a common carrier like Google or Yahoo, where you upload the files and they share them. And they weren't the ones uploading the files. They weren't the ones breaking the law. But the United States has been after him for years. And it sounded like they're getting very close to extraditing Kim.com to the United States, where he would no doubt be tried and put into jail for copyright crimes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is big news. There's a lot of big news being washed over. If anybody is following what's going on in the world, you'll know that. So that's a big, huge thing. But that's crazy because I don't really follow Kim.com too much. I used to live in New Zealand. I have my opinions about the American and the New Zealand government, but it's quite interesting. We'll see what happens with this, I guess.
And I do follow Kim.com, and he follows me. How cool is that? Yeah, Kim.com follows you. Not bad.
So what do you... Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's cool.
With 18,000 other people. So, oh well. But still, it's pretty cool. I can direct message him sometime. One time I invited him on the show, and he considered it. So, better than nothing.
That's not bad.
Yep. But yeah, he's in trouble. A lot of people thought he'd be fine because he was in New Zealand. It's so far away. Of course, remember his mansion was raided several times while his kids were home. He is a family man with a family. Seems like a good dude. I don't know him or anything. But again, he's down for these copyright crimes. It was years ago. Google does the same thing. YouTube especially does the same thing. What's the difference between YouTube and Mega Upload? Mega Upload is illegal. So
Oh,
there it is. That's it.
wow. I didn't know that. I'm on BitChute, and I like it because you can find content that you can't find on YouTube. And I hate to down YouTube because I use it, but at the same time, it would suck to go on your channel and find half your movies just deleted. So it's never fun to find that out. I don't have that, but it's just, I'm new to the whole space. At the same time, I think it's really good for people who are coming into the space, who want to come into the space, or who are already in the space, or being aware that this is happening. So there are the platforms like BitChute. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if you're gonna download anything these days, I suggest you get a VPN. I would recommend a VPN, but they didn't respond to my tweet saying they should sponsor us. But there is a very good VPN out there. They just don't seem to want to sponsor us. But
Oh, yes.
well, the tweets are busy. They might not have seen it. You know, benefit of the doubt. But we're checking in with the chat. They're talking about Kim.com. There's some strange information here about Kim.com giving WikiLeaks information to Hillary. I don't know anything about that. You can check that out. Twin Entry Turbo says that Kim.com is toast. Sadly, I kind of agree with that. He says he deserves it. I'm not so sure. I'm not sure what real laws he broke, where the real harms are. If he didn't share that movie, I think someone else was going to share that movie. And I generally believe in the common carrier, that Yahoo and YouTube and Mega Upload are just providing tools. And if you use those tools to share movies or music or whatever, you're the one breaking the law, not the tool. But we're going to wipe out all the tools. So a guy wants to know our top 5 crypto. Let's see. Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. Yeah, there it is. Done. And he likes Bukowski, and he's in Istanbul. That's really cool. That's pretty interesting, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're mainly into Bitcoin here.
Yeah.
I don't know the other ones. For a while there, I thought Stellar was going to go up and be pretty cool. Recently, all the big news is about EOS. It would be wrong for me not to mention EOS. It keeps going up in value despite all the strange things about it. And then the other side of that coin, they're telling me in the chat that NEO went up like 15% today or something. So NEO and EOS, Stellar, the usual suspects, Litecoin, Ethereum, I guess, these kind of things. They seem to be pretty stable, but still, once again, Bitcoin. So they say Potcoin is pretty rad. I don't know. What can you buy with Potcoin?
I don't know, honestly. I think a lot of these are for pumping, honestly. And I don't think altcoins have confirmations. They just have in fluctuations, you know, and they either hold and then they reach a new level. But I don't think if as Bitcoin drops and consolidates that altcoins are going to do anything but lose. I've played that market, and I just say if you guys are doing that and you are into Bitcoin, as we are, I think that when you see the we have a caller.
Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Mustafa. I'm calling
Mustafa.
from Illinois.
All right, Illinois. You're up in the north today. Boy, you really get around, man, in that truck.
I'm going home, man. Finally.
Nice, excellent, man. Some time off. You deserve it. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Yeah, about 30 hours or so. I'll take 30 hours off and get back to work. But I was calling just because I was thinking about something and you guys started talking about Potcoin. So I was like, I gotta call in and maybe discuss this. I don't know. Maybe you guys have an opinion on it. I know I do. You know how it's very hard to get banking if you open up a marijuana dispensary?
Sure, they pretty much have to do a fiat only because they're afraid that their accounts could be seized by the federal government, and then the banks won't even deal with them because no one knows how the federal government will react depending on what day it is. Yeah,
exactly. So, so me and a friend of mine, we've came up with an idea of kind of coming up with like a way for you know, marijuana dispensaries to save their money in Bitcoin, you know, because I've seen a lot of other cryptocurrencies try to do it and fail, like Cannabis Coin or Pot Coin or even Dash. I guess Dark Coin was trying to do it for a little bit. I don't know if they still are, but
Sure.
I have a couple of friends that are in that business, and I spoke to them about it, and they're very interested in saving or saving their money in Bitcoin, paying their employees in Bitcoin, because they have to transact everything in cash. They pay their employees in cash, they pay their taxes in cash, they pay all their bills in cash as well, and it's a hassle, because then they have to just keep a whole bunch of money, and like they have to keep it in like however they receive it, so like fives and tens and 20s and stuff like that, and it just they got stacks and stacks of cash that it's just so hard to secure and transport and so forth.
Oh, definitely. I think it would be what I'm surprised is that there isn't a big deal between a major dispensary and a major Bitcoin ATM company, because it seems like a no-brainer. You just put the Bitcoin ATM in there, and then if the dispensary or the dispensary workers or anybody wants to buy some Bitcoin, they could just pump the money into the ATM. But I agree that cash is a real problem in the cannabis industry. The Oakland Harborside Club, they've been in business probably about 10, 20 years now. And I've heard rumors that they have entire vaults dedicated to just holding their cash. And they have pallets full of cash, and they just can't do anything. They can't invest it. They can't make interest on it. They can't have it in a safe place. And they keep having to hire all the security and move all this money around. And it obviously makes a perfectly safe business perfectly unsafe. If you took a place like In-N-Out Burger and you said you can't use the banks anymore, In-N-Out Burger would get robbed all the time, right? They make lots of money. You could go there and take the money. Now they have to hold it. You're putting a target on In-N-Out Burger. In the same way, because of this backwards federal laws, they've put a target on otherwise perfectly legitimate cannabis companies.
Right, exactly, and that's why I've been thinking about this for years, but like you said, having a Bitcoin ATM would be like a perfect solution. But we're what I'm trying to do is more of just like I'm trying to become the Bitcoin ATM in a sense.
There you go.
To these dispensaries and say, give me your cash. I'll sell you the Bitcoin, and I'll teach you how to use it. And that way, if they get the information, they get the knowledge on how to use the Bitcoin, use the whole Bitcoin platform and like paying their employees or whatever. And at the same time, I can go find people that want to sell Bitcoin, and I can be like sort of like a middleman to just connect these two people together.
That does sound great, and I think the personal touch is what's missing in a lot of Bitcoin things right now. People have heard of Bitcoin now. Previously, they hadn't heard of it, so that was a pretty big hurdle. But now if you go in, people have heard of it, and you can convince them to use it, and then you can kind of insert yourself as a temporary middleman, and you can make a little bit of fees, and you can get the business started on it, and it might not last forever. They might start buying from Coinbase or whatever. You can't blame them. But if you got 3 or 4 of those, and
I'm not trying to make this as a business for myself. I'm just trying to make it to where, I honestly would like to go into the marijuana dispensary business myself. So, but I've in research, while I was researching it, I figured out that I'm going to end up having a whole bunch of cash that I have to do something with, and to me that's scary, just like you said, because you can get robbed, you can get, your store can burn down and all your cash will catch on fire or whatever, like, so you gotta, it's hard to secure. And so that's what I was thinking, like, oh, well, cryptocurrency, and we can just connect those two together, and there you go.
Well, and I've also thought this would be a good idea for a lot of other businesses that only take cash. Back when I used to live in San Francisco, there was all these burrito shops in the Mission, and they're all cash only, cash only. And you know why they're doing that. They're skimming on their taxes maybe, but it seems like a great idea for them to take cash and Bitcoin, or even to have a deal with a friend of theirs to trade some of that cash to Bitcoin. There's no reason to hold it all in cash, and especially if you don't know where it came from and you're able to trade it to someone for Bitcoin and you don't know where that came from. if you can accidentally make money disappear and then you have it still, it seems pretty good. I can see why a lot of other people wouldn't like this, but you do what you will, right? You do what you can, and there's more and more places like that.
So many freedoms when you do it that way. You have so much more freedom with your money, and it's just so much more secure. Now, obviously, the price fluctuation might deter some people from doing that right now, just because they might oh, well, I'm going to lose value. My money's going to lose value or whatever. But in the short term, and I mean, I don't know how easy it would be to convince someone today, just because of the short history this year of what's been happening with the price and all that.
Sure, it's harder to convince people of things in the down market, but it can turn so quickly. I thought that we were in a nice uptrend, and then I moved to Vegas, and by the time I got here, we're back in the downtrend. So hopefully we'll turn it back around. But if you don't take those risks, you're not going to get the gains. But a business, you need to cover your costs. So there's a lot of reasons for a business just to try to get the money that they made out of the system or into the system.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm working on just in my head as of now. But I'll keep you guys updated if I actually get it on paper, if I get a website or something.
Well, and they are warning you in the chat. You might need a money licensing transmission law. There's some kind. You might need a money transmission license. So I don't know about that, and I don't know what the levels are. But I think if you did it at a small level, if you did it on the small level, it might be okay on the down low. But you need to check your local laws and just make sure you're in compliance for safety and everything. So.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think there's a law against providing information to people, as long as you just go to someone and just tell them, hey, I recommend you do this, and that, and then let them do it themselves and not be involved in what anyway.
Actually, I think that's an even better idea. It's just a consulting company. You just say, hey, marijuana businesses, do you want a solution? And you charge them a couple grand or something. And you come in and you talk to them for an hour and you give them your phone number so they can ask you questions in the future, and you set them up with an account, and then they could try it. So once again, we just need more individuals spreading the word. I saw a sign somebody put last night on a normal ATM in Brooklyn or something, and the sign said about Bitcoin. And it's like, yeah, just stick up a sign somewhere, stick up some signs, start a consulting business, tell more people about it, and then give them that, like I'm saying, that personal touch, because they might have really want to do Bitcoin, but if someone doesn't hold their hand the first time, they're never going to get there. So if you hold their hand and get them through the consulting, and then you could do follow-up appointments or other consulting, and I think it would be really good.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm gonna be working towards that, and I'll keep you guys updated if there's any progress moving forward with it.
All right, that sounds great. Keep working on it, and thanks so much for the call, Mustafa.
For sure, man. Thank you.
All right, and looks like Ricardo only has a few minutes left. Ricardo, just want to say goodbye for today, or you got some more?
You guys, I really appreciate just being here, the space, and I really hope that this day goes great. If you're into it, get into it, get excited, bring more people to the space. Don't forget to support World Crypto Network. We're here for you guys, and don't forget to bye. Peace out, guys.
All right, thanks so much, Ricardo. And if you'd like to call us now, you can call us on Skype at World Crypto Network. We'll try to keep this show going if we can get a few more calls or maybe some questions in the chat. We have 205 live viewers. Thanks so much to everybody for giving us a thumbs up and a share. That really helps spread the show. And we'll just see if we can keep going. Otherwise, we might play a little bit of the old Bitcoin group. I think it's kind of fun to play some old shows these days, but we're keeping track of the chat. We Smoke Bitcoins is playing air guitar. They're going to provide someone with some green, and they agree the consulting business model is a good way to go. Helping people to set up wallets is a good idea, and might be better to move to a better country to start your business. I think that we kind of found the middle ground there with consulting. You can tell them to go buy Bitcoin, and then they can go make their own choices. And this way, you don't have to get the Bitcoin or hold their money or be involved in any of that. You can just meet with them a couple of times, be available, Maybe you could even work out a contract where they pay you a certain amount for the right to call you for tech support in the next 6 months, or maybe they could pay you per tech support incident or something like that. There's a way to grind a little money out of that. And if you really wanted to hustle, if you went to a lot of pot clubs, you could get a lot of consulting clients and you could make a little dough. And you don't have to stop with just pot clubs. Like I'm saying, burrito shops, places in not nice neighborhoods, anybody that's taking cash only should be doing cash and Bitcoin, or at least know how to store their cash in Bitcoin, because it would be a good idea for them. But we are talking on Bitcoin Talk Show, and you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Or we might take a break and come back. Let's see. Is there a show on how to run your own Bitcoin node? Chris Ellis has done several shows back in the day about how to set up a Bitcoin node. I'm not sure if they're still totally accurate, but they're there on the channel. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Alberto, and I'm calling from Boston.
All right. And what's on your mind today about Bitcoin?
Say again? Sorry.
Sure. What are you thinking today about Bitcoin?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have one thought about Bitcoin, and nobody talks about it very often. First of all, sorry for my English. I'm Italian, living in the United States, but I moved recently. So my English is still not that good. So my thought is about taxes. You know, we are going in the direction when we will eventually pay the coffee with Bitcoin, hopefully with Lightning Network. But then we're supposed to pay taxes, at least here in the United States, on this coffee. And what I don't understand is how people don't care about this. I mean, you have to report every coffee that you buy. That's crazy. I mean, if you explain this thing to a no-coiner, to a person that doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, of course they will say, hey, I don't want to do anything with Bitcoin. I don't want to have Bitcoin because I cannot use it. I mean, I can use it, but then I have to report IRS every expense. So I would like to know what you think about it and why the community is not talking about this issue.
Well, it was quite a few years ago that they made the bad decision to make Bitcoin a commodity instead of a currency. At the time, I think they said that currencies have to come from countries. And since Bitcoin doesn't come from a country, it can't be a currency. But we all know that the internet, although virtual, is pretty much its own country. So I would say Bitcoin comes from the country of the internet and should be declared a currency. And like you're saying, a currency you can buy and sell to buy coffee at any time. People don't even think of it as buying or selling. But really, when you buy a coffee for $1, you're selling that dollar. You're saying, I don't wish to hold the dollar anymore. Whereas if you made the choice not to get the coffee and you got a water instead, you could hold that dollar still, essentially investing in the value of the dollar. But like we said, they decided that Bitcoin was instead a commodity, like soybeans or orange juice or coffee. And when you trade that for something else, when you trade in commodities, you have to make a tax payment for every single commodity buy or commodity sell. So this was just a mistake they made years ago. We were upset in the time. It still seems ridiculous today. Like you're saying, if you really used Bitcoin to buy your coffee every week, you could use hundreds or thousands of Bitcoin transactions throughout the year, creating an incredible headache for your accountant and an almost unpayable tax solution. It's a major bureaucratic nightmare. I think people are upset, but there's not much they can do. We still don't have like critical mass of Bitcoiners in the world. There hasn't been a case yet where they said you didn't pay for the taxes on your coffee transaction and we're putting you in jail. I think if they did something like that, it would highlight this issue and it would bring more cause to it. But until something like that happens, or until we reach the critical mass of Bitcoiners, it's probably going to stay this way.
Yeah, I use the coin tracking, the website paid in order to file my tax report the most accurate way possible. And I also included the small donations that I made, which is really crazy that I had to pay taxes on it. Sure. And initially when I started with this in this space, I also traded some altcoin, and now I'm going toward Bitcoin 100%. So I also had that problem, that issue, that I had to pay taxes on the trading of altcoins, which is, again, crazy in my opinion. But eventually I did it, and hope this year I will not have to do it again. And yeah, but this is a great thing. Oh, I'm spreading the word about Bitcoin with my friends. I'm organizing an event, a small event, Bitcoin for beginners, here in Boston for the July 19th. So it's an open event. It's on Eventbrite. Of course, it will be very easy. I will explain what Bitcoin is and why it's useful. So if anybody is in this area and wants just to pass by, it's on Eventbrite. So I think this is useful, to spread the word.
Absolutely. And I think we just need more people doing that, having little seminars, starting Bitcoin meetups, putting signs on ATMs, having consulting businesses like we talked with Mustafa. We can all do our part, and we can all spread Bitcoin to our own community. The people that you're best at talking at are the people that you talk to all the time. And the people I'm best at talking at are the people I talk to all the time. And together, I think we can cover all the people. But we're all going to have to talk about it. We're all going to have to teach people about Bitcoin, have conferences and seminars, put up flyers, whatever it takes. Go to meetups, whatever it takes to spread the word about meetup. Oh yeah, that's we have the Las Vegas meetup tonight in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
I should get that up on the screen here. But yeah, we're just it's been taking off pretty slowly, but still we have 4 or 5 guys that will come. And they come to the meetup, and it's pretty cool. So, and we're just touring different restaurants, getting to try out different things now. And it's really fun. And you can start your own meetup group at meetup.com. It costs a little bit depending on the size of your meetup. But meetup's really nice because you can schedule it and you can host it there. We have 96 members, and we're meeting tonight at Craft and Kitchen at 7 o'clock in Las Vegas. So yeah, join a Bitcoin meetup or start a Bitcoin meetup. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and Thomas, thank you very much for what you're doing for the community. You really are always there, and very useful information, and it's always fun to listen to your podcast or YouTube. And that's it. Thank you again, Thomas.
Well, thank you so much for the call, and good luck with your Bitcoin meetup.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, bye-bye. And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We'll try to keep the lines open for a little bit, or we might end up taking a break or ending the show. So it just depends. If there aren't any calls in the next 5 minutes or so, we might go to the pre-recorded content. But yeah. Talking in the chat, you can make a Bitcoin pump and dump group. That's right. You could take this same advice to make a Bitcoin meetup, but you could make it about your favorite altcoin, and then you could tell everyone about it, and then you could dump it all on them. That seems like that's been done though, right? But let's check it out. I'm going to try to get the share going here and see if we can take you back into Bitcoin history again. I had a fun time yesterday watching the old history of money videos that I put out. Those were pretty fun to watch. And here's a little bit of the Bitcoin group number 2. This was streamed live on October 25th, 2013. You might recognize a few familiar faces. Even looks like a very young version of me. I was experimenting with this live green screening technology. It worked, but I couldn't get the resolution to go higher, so I look like Max Headroom. But it's pretty fun to have a backdrop behind you. I've tried it recently. It still did the same thing, made it very small. But in this episode, they convinced me not to wear the Mad Hatter hat and to use my real name, both of which I was against at the time because I had a cool thing going, being Mad Bitcoins. But in this one, they wanted to be more serious. And I said, okay, I thought it was fun. But this is a fun episode of the Bitcoin group number 2, all the way from 2013. So check it out. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. And thanks so much for watching Bitcoin Talk Show. Until next time, bye-bye. Stay tuned. Here it is.
Original for over the last 10 seconds.
On. The American original. For
Cut it
over
off.
the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, best Bitcoins, hardest cryptocurrency talk. Featuring Andreas Antonopoulos from Let's Talk Bitcoin, Davi Barker from BitcoinNotBombs.com, and Derek J. Freeman from PeaceNewsNow.com. And I'm Thomas Hunt from Mad Bitcoins. Issue 1, Bitcoin Bubble. Bitcoin prices are soaring. Bitcoin value has exceeded 200, even on the venerable Bitstamp, to say nothing of the outrageous 233 on the legendary Mt. Gox. Is this the new norm? Are we headed to the moon? Or is this just another Bitcoin bubble? I ask you, Andreas Antonopoulos.
It's another Bitcoin bubble. But on the good side, every single time we have another Bitcoin bubble, we take off, we head for the moon, we get our wings clipped. But when we land, we're quite a few thousand feet above where we were when we started. If you look at these bubbles, they've been happening now at decreasing intervals. So the first gap between bubbles was more than 8 months. Then the next one was 6 months, 4, 3. We're gradually accelerating the rate at which we're doing these bubbles. And every time we crash from one of these bubbles, we end up at a price level that's much higher than before. So even in this one, the price a few weeks ago was 125. That was pretty nice price, and yet now that's well in the past. I don't think we're going to return to it anytime soon. So I think this is just the natural response of a market with a lot of volatility, a lot of sentiment, not enough liquidity, not a stable enough base. I compare it to a zodiac bouncing up and down in the waves next to the US dollar's Titanic. Yeah, you're getting a much more stable ride up there, buddies, but I can dodge the iceberg.
Davi Barker, what do you think?
I actually kind of, maybe I'm going to put my financial foot in my mouth here, but I have a problem with the nomenclature bubble. I mean, to me, bubble is when, there's an inflation in the price of something as a result of tax subsidies or government handouts or some sort of fundamental market manipulation. And what we're talking about is actual people buying and selling actual Bitcoin in actual exchanges. And so that's what it's worth to them at the time. So I like to think of it more like the tulip craze. I would rather use the term like a craze or a mania or some of these older economic terms that we used before we used the word bubble. And that's, yes, I think that this was some Bitcoin mania that we've come down from, but as Andreas said, we didn't go all the way back down to where we were. I think it's at about 185 right now, and I'm very happy with that. So no, I'm not going to call it a bubble.
Derek J.
Well, Bitcoin's still in its relative infancy as a currency, so the various exchanges that it's traded on fluctuate wildly. All of its moves are exaggerated. But from my amateur analysis over the past 2 weeks, I'd say this is the beginning of a healthy run-up, powered mainly by Chinese investors. It's responding to a lot of good news, especially coming out of China. And we experienced a little profit taking over the last 2 days. That'll probably continue, but I still expect volume to continue to increase along with price. So headed to the moon, no. Bubble, no. But a healthy run up to a new plateau, most likely. Maybe 200 will be the new 125 for a while, and the price will go higher in the short term and in the long term.
Part of the reason it's behaving like a penny stock is because well, it's got the market capitalization of a penny stock, so it is volatile. That's normal. The seesaw effect we see is a periodic oscillation, and it will continue to go like that. It's basically overcorrection. People get too excited, then they get too panicky, then they get too excited again. So we're basically oscillating around the actual price mean just because of overcorrection every time.
I think Davi made a good point about the tulips, but it's not totally analogous with that, because at the end of the day, the tulips were all valueless. Bitcoin is something that's very exciting, and it makes sense that there'd be a mania around it. The question is, how long will that mania last? And we're still heading up eventually, I think.
I think it lasts until it's a global currency, because every time there's a fresh influx of Bitcoin users, those users are they're newbies, they're virgins. And so they come in with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of volatility. And so every time there's a new crop of people, they're going to panic more, they're going to buy and sell faster, and it's going to take them a couple of crashes and burns before they calm down like the rest of us. And so we're going to see that until it's everybody.
Exit question. The value of Bitcoin will go up or down? Davi Barker.
I think it's going up. I don't think it's going to hold.
I say it's going up in the short term and the long term.
Andreas.
It's going to bounce around chaotically in the short term, but in the long term, Bitcoin can't do a gradual rise. It can only do explosive.
In the long term, we're going to the moon. Issue 2, Bitcoins and China. Popular Chinese exchange BTC China is operating without exchange fees during the Chinese holiday. The price of a Bitcoin in China is surging. The government is turning a blind eye. Is China the new engine of Bitcoin? In China we trust? I ask you, Davi Barker.
I don't know that the Chinese government is turning a blind eye. I think as Americans, we're sort of predisposed to think that a government reaction is immediate overreaction. And I don't think that's necessarily the way all governments in the world behave. So if I were the Chinese government, I would probably be reserving judgment and watching to see what sort of benefits and harms come out for me. And so a sort of passive reaction makes sense to me for them. But we're going to see this anytime new population centers, like when Bitcoin becomes prolific in India, we're going to see a very volatile, couple of weeks. And so that's what this means to me is as new populations come on, it sort of reveals these sort of populist impulses in the price of Bitcoin.
Derek J.
China's absolutely leading the way. When we saw last month, they took over the majority of volume global purchases globally, and I expect that's going to be the norm for the foreseeable future. China's the new engine for Bitcoin, in part because the government's turning a blind eye to Bitcoin, as you put it, but also in huge part because they're turning a blind eye to most regulations in general over there. It's lifted literally billions out of poverty in the last 2 decades and created a new middle class, which will be the engine in driving up prices for years to come.
Andreas?
No, the Chinese government isn't turning a blind eye. They've had 3 documentaries lasting more than an hour on national television. I don't think that's the individual expression and whim of some kind of editor. That was run all the way up the polls and got very, very explicit endorsement from the top. Otherwise, it would not have happened. This is not a free media market. You don't get an hour documentary on Bitcoin on Chinese TV unless someone at the very top said, we don't have the world currency reserve. Hey, maybe no one should have the world currency reserve. So if we can just unseat the dollar, maybe a reserve currency that's controlled by no one is a better reserve currency than one that's controlled by our major international competitor. I think this is absolutely deliberate. I think it's opportunistic. And I think the Chinese will continue to support Bitcoin just to stick in the eye of Uncle Sam and to free themselves essentially from the pervasive cost of holding petrodollar as a national reserve, which really China can do without.
That's a really great point that hadn't occurred to me about those documentaries.
It's an interesting idea, Andreas. Do you think that Russia will join in? Will we see a new currency Cold War?
Oh, absolutely. Russia has already joined in. I've been on RT 3 times talking about Bitcoin on Russia Today. I've been on Bloomberg once. And part of the reason for that is because anytime Russians can say that America sucks and should be replaced as global hegemon, yeah, they'll get a really nice audience for that. And so, again, Bitcoin is an opportunistic approach to shoving a stick in the eye of Uncle Sam. Now, I, for one, think that a world reserve currency that's controlled by no one is better than a world reserve currency that's controlled by Ben.
Wait a minute, I have to interject here and say that governments have every interest in preserving their fiat empires. It's a lot easier for them to spend money that they create out of thin air than to acquire it justly. So I don't know if I wholeheartedly agree that these governments are interested in getting their populations into Bitcoin.
Oh, of course not. They're interested in getting our populations into Bitcoin so that we lose our reserve currency status and they can then regulate only the Chinese currency existing in their state. I don't expect them to suddenly liberalize and go, hey, let's all go play with Bitcoin. But if they can persuade enough people that Bitcoin is viable on an international trade basis, you know, nudge the Saudis a bit to drop the petrodollar, that would be such a monumental strike against the supremacy of the US dollar that would be absolutely in the national interest of the Chinese. Here's what they understand. They understand that if they rile everyone up, in America, you can't close the door, and in China, you can. Because in America, you can use regulation, and in China, you can use rubber hoses. So as a result, they're much more confident that they can control their own population, and they can sow disruption in our population. And that's a very opportunistic and cynical way to look at it, which really is what politics at that level is.
You know, that has such far-reaching foreign policy ramifications. I mean, there's an analysis to be done of American military adventurism that it often has to do with maintaining the dollar hegemony in the world.
Absolutely.
Well, if there's no country to invade, if there's nobody issuing Bitcoin for them to attack, then what happens when people start abandoning the dollar as their reserve for Bitcoin?
It's not just about people abandoning the dollar. The other side story here is the really bad situation in the relationships between Saudi Arabia and the United States. Most people don't understand that the primary reason every single country in the world holds its reserves in US dollars is because that's the only currency with which they can buy oil. They need to hold dollars in order to buy oil. And that's primarily because the Saudis will only take dollars for their oil. If the Saudis tomorrow morning started taking euros, the US dollar would be in serious trouble. And if the Saudis tomorrow morning started taking Bitcoins, whole new world.
Exit question. The Chinese government will continue ignoring Bitcoin for a time period, 6 months, ranging until the heat death of the universe. Andreas.
Minus 6 months.
Davi.
Stopped ignoring.
Well, I was originally going to say that they just started paying attention, but I think Andreas is right.
Derek J.
I stand corrected about the infomercials, of which I was not aware, but hopefully government agents in China never actively interfere with people exchanging Bitcoin. Bureaucrats in other countries like Thailand have outright banned Bitcoin. So I suspect it'll take years for the Chinese government to declare a ruling one way or another. They've already had enough trouble embarrassing themselves as it is trying to censor the age of information. So hopefully they'll realize it's pointless to try and regulate it, and they never attempt it.
Excellent. Issue 3, Bitcoin Island. How will Bitcoin take off? Will it be a large industrialized nation like the United States, or a small island like Cyprus, Iceland, or Costa Rica, which will be the first to fully adopt Bitcoin and use it in day-to-day transactions? What kind of business will be the first to adopt Bitcoin, and how long will it take? I ask you, Derek J.
It could go two ways. How will Bitcoin take off? There's promising things coming out of Cyprus, like the B and Neo payment network, but also from the wide dissemination of apps that are already available that make it easy to spend Bitcoin in regular stores. Gift has already come a long way in aiding adoption for folks in the US. And don't forget about places like Kenya, where already a third of the economy is transacted via mobile phones. So companies like M-Pesa are making it easy to integrate with Bitcoin. And now, just news this week from Soft Touch POS that they're going to develop a POS system for restaurants that'll integrate Bitcoin and allow payments just like cash. So people at a regular restaurant will be able to spend their Bitcoin, and it'll seem like cash to the restaurant. So that's all thanks to businesses like BitPay. And so to answer your question, the first types of businesses to accept Bitcoin will be restaurants and coffee shops and the places that have already come to accept new types of currency. Like we've seen, if you've seen a store that uses an iPad for a register or an iPhone for a credit card processor, they'll be accepting Bitcoin by this time next year.
Andreas, your thoughts?
The United States will be the last country to wholeheartedly and completely adopt Bitcoin because it has the most to lose and the least to gain. There are 130 some currencies in the world, only one world reserve currency. We have it good here, and we don't realize how bad it is in other countries. So in order to look at this, we have to look at the adoption criteria, and there is a tipping point. There's a point at which the just the raw utility of Bitcoin compared to the national currency becomes so compelling, and the barriers to adoption, availability of electricity, infrastructure, internet connectivity, smartphones, cultural acceptance, religious acceptance, etc. All of those things start falling like dominoes until you reach this tipping point. at that point, I really think that Bitcoin can act as the Red Cross of currencies, coming in, dropping in basically an exit relief valve that allows a country under significant financial stress to bail itself out by exiting its fiat currency. I expect a country like Argentina might be first, perhaps a smaller nation state like Singapore, one of the distressed countries in Europe, or some other country that wants to start this off as a financial haven. But this is not a first world currency. The relative utility of Bitcoin is much, much greater in the second world, where you have that perfect combination of underlying infrastructure and really, really useful stuff.
Davi, your thoughts?
Well, I'm wondering if the geographic limitations of the question are sort of irrelevant. It seems to me that the internet itself is Bitcoin Island. And the more that we move into a Bitcoin economy, the more we are fundamentally living on the internet. So, I mean, if I can do business with someone in Argentina, I will. If I can do business with someone in China, I will. And that's because we have this sort of like conduit of information that allows us to communicate and do commerce and things like that. So Bitcoin has already taken off, and we've already seen which kinds of businesses are going to be the first to adopt it. And it's sort of technological leaning businesses on the internet. So now it's just a matter of creating spaces in, meat space, where there are enough people around you to get the sort of needs of food and rent and utilities and things like that. And that's not even bound by geography per se. It just happens to be wherever you're living. An individual could get off of their local fiat currency as soon as there's enough sort of to sustain them around them. So I think the internet is Bitcoin Island, and it's already off the ground.
Excellent. Derek, what do you think about that? Bitcoin Island?
Well, for an island that may accept Bitcoin, I would say Cyprus is coming first, because they've got Neo, which is a brick and mortar bank, and the B payment network, which is a first of its kind way for people to spend Bitcoin in real space the same way they would with a credit card.
If your government is not accepting Bitcoin, but every single person in that population is already trading in Bitcoin, does it really matter? So I think, to Davi's point, if the internet starts getting a critical mass of Bitcoiners, even if they're distributed widely geographically, they become their own economy, and like a meta layer across geographies. And if a lot of people in a country adopt Bitcoin, the government may simply not have another option.
That sounds right. Force prediction. What island nation or small country will be the first to adopt Bitcoin? Davi Barker.
The Maldives. It's in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's, longitudinally the same. It's a volcanic string of islands like Hawaii. But it's, it's fairly primitive. There's some technology, but not much. And it seems like a great place for people to go. And it's got a lot of room for the economy to develop. So I'm going Maldives.
Derek J.
Cyprus. The CEO of Neo and the B Payment Network, Danny Brewster, did an AMA on Reddit and just last month, and so you can read the exciting comments there yourself.
Andreas Antonopoulos.
One of the Caribbean nations that are already involved in offshore banking, Bermuda, Bahamas, Maldives, or any of those, or one of the small nation states that's involved in offshore banking or haven banking, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, one of those potentially, or some obscure weird nation in the middle of nowhere that does exactly what Tuvalu did with a .tv domain, and sees essentially a Bitcoin fiat sovereign-backed currency as its little differentiator that it can use to break out on the world stage and take everybody's offshore banking business away.
If we're allowing for landlocked islands, I think I'd like to change my answer to Somalia.
A good choice. But the
they have
answer...
internet access, they've got no government to regulate them. It seems like a natural fit.
I believe Derek J. is right. The answer is Cyprus. The recent bank crisis there will continue to force people to look for alternative currencies. Issue 4, Bitcoin and the homeless. How can an online currency help people with real problems in the real world? Is access to banking enough to lift an entire class? How can Bitcoin help the homeless? I ask you, Andreas Antonopoulos.
I haven't been homeless in a very long time. I was only very briefly homeless for a few days back in my college years. So with the ultimate authority that comes purely from the fact that I'm a white male and can express my opinion as much as I like, I would say I don't really know. Listen, for the homeless, I think what we've seen is that smartphones and internet connectivity seem to not be a luxury, but an absolute necessity. One of the basic fundamental tools of survival in a modern society. Even if you're homeless, before you get a car, before you get a home, you need a smartphone. You need it to get jobs. You need it to find other people to help you. You need it for all kinds of reasons. And for that reason alone, because the smartphone is such or a phone, at least an internet connected phone, is such a huge component today of homelessness in the first world, I would say that Bitcoin has the possibility of making an impact there. But at the same time, I really can't speak about that. I have no personal experience.
Davi Barker?
I think the central benefit that I see would be just one of currency substitution. If they were not keeping and operating the dollar and the sort of inflationary problems with the dollar, and they were instead dealing in a currency that was not manipulated by a Federal Reserve, then they're then holding on to something. They can actually hold on to something, and they're holding on to something that doesn't become worthless over time. So I think that systemic inflation in a fiat currency is a big part of why you have a lot of poverty and a lot of homelessness in an otherwise wealthy economy. And so if you sort of in aggregate transitioned out of the inflationary fiat currency, that would be a long-term benefit. But that's hard to specify for the individual how it's useful.
Derek J?
Bitcoin Not Bombs is doing a fundraiser to give homeless people hoodies. And for those who are recently homeless, many of them have smartphones and can use Bitcoin with apps like Gift to purchase food, clothing, and even shelter using Bitcoin. And eventually, as the value of Bitcoin rises, hopefully the Bitcoins they have in their wallets will appreciate. And you can't spend Bitcoin in most places where they would be spending them, so Bitcoin will likely turn into a form of savings for a group of people who would otherwise have no safe means of storage or standard banking. And ideas like Satoshi Forest are coming to life in the real world and giving the homeless a viable alternative to begging, and one that's sustainable and enriches their lives in ways that just weren't possible 5 years ago.
I think Derek makes some good points that the access to banking will help the homeless. The ability to put $5, $10 in an account and not have it be eaten up by transaction fees or any other kind of fee, I think is a real benefit that they'll be able to unlock once they get into Bitcoin. The difficulty right now is I think there aren't enough Bitcoin ATMs, so that if you really had kind of a begging to Bitcoin strategy, you couldn't really implement the second half of it. Maybe if you went to some local Bitcoin meetings. What do you think, Andreas?
I think first world homeless people are, I don't, perhaps this is not the right word, but are essentially the environment in which we're going to see whether Bitcoin will succeed in the second and third world. The most important aspect of Bitcoin is its ability to bring the 6.5 billion unbanked people online and allow them to participate in a global economy. Now, if you can't do that within a population that already has literacy, electricity, infrastructure, connectivity, and smartphones, and has the need for that, then certainly you won't be able to do it where all of those other components are missing. So whether we can successfully use Bitcoin to help homeless people and whether homeless people can use Bitcoin to empower themselves is really the criterion as to whether we can use it to lift the rest of the world out of poverty and whether we'll have that kind of disruptive effect.
Davi, your thoughts?
I like the idea of using it as a test case because it is sort of poverty in the first world is a sort of best case scenario for solving sort of low standards of living in the third world, and that's really interesting. The thing is, it's not conventional charity. It's not that you are going to a person and lifting them up. It's what Andreas said. It's you are giving them a tool by which to empower themselves. And so there's a learning curve. There's some effort on their part that would be required. It really takes a motivated person to grab a hold of the tool and figure out how to use it and how to benefit themselves. And that inclination and that motivation is another necessary component that I have no reference point, but I'm hoping that we can discover is actually there.
The other interesting testbed for that is international remittances, because it has the same issue of an imbalance of payments and flows. It has the same issues of how do you enable the local exchange of Bitcoins when they arrive at the destination, what infrastructure is required, and whether you can introduce the concept to people who only have interest in it from a value perspective and no ideological commitment either way. So remittances and how we can help or how the homeless in the first world can help themselves is really, yeah, the test bed.
I'd like to interject that I think philosophical components are of no significance with the spread of Bitcoin. It's going to be how people find personal value in it. And I have personal experience bringing Bitcoin to impoverished communities, teaching people how to set up wallets and how to trade Bitcoin. And it's a no-brainer. People are instantly get it, that whereas they wouldn't want to go down the street to set up a bank account with their driver's license, they're eager to set up a Bitcoin wallet on their smartphone that they already have and trade it with their community for whatever they use within their community. And it's going to enrich the community as more and more people start to use it. You can imagine a year from now, they'll be greatly enriched just by a little bit of savings in Bitcoin.
Are you saying you've done this like on the streets in Philadelphia?
I have.
What can you give us an anecdote? Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, so one woman who I met is a dance instructor and hairdresser, and she teaches classes, and she's able to accept Bitcoin from her customers if she'd like, now that she's been introduced to the concept, whereas in the past she wasn't interested in having a bank account. And when I brought up the concept of that she was able to open an account instantly for free and attach no identity to it, she was interested.
That's awesome. That's a great.
That is a problem with homelessness, because they often don't have the requisite documents to open a bank account. They don't have a permanent address. Often they've had their wallet stolen years ago and never gotten replacement ID cards. You know, like a lot of times they are from a paperwork perspective off the grid.
It's very important to recognize that the reason 6.5 billion people are unbanked in today's world has very little to do with their productive capacity or their cash situation. It's not that these people have no money and no productive capacity. That's not why people are unbanked. It has a lot to do with politics, with geography, with access to infrastructure, with access to documentation and identity, with the difficulty for migrant populations, for undocumented populations. Here in the US, the vast majority of the unbanked actually come from undocumented immigrant backgrounds, where it's simply inability to have legitimate documentation to produce the bank. So it's very important to understand that the lack of money is not the reason people are unbanked. And if you give them access, they have productive capacity, they have assets that they can then start leveraging to better their own lives. So that's a very important thing, because this fallacy that somehow, you know, they're just too poor to need banking is ridiculous, and yet it is the predominant idea here.
Absolutely. Let's move on now to predictions. This is the part of the show where I call on you and expect you to predict the future. Andreas Antonopoulos.
Generally?
Well, about Bitcoin, I don't know. Predictions. I've got one.
Go ahead.
Oh, mine's last.
All right, you put me on the spot, I'll go for it. So I think that the recent publicity caused by the close of Silk Road will take Bitcoin above $300 before the end of the year. At the same time, we could go all the way back down to 30 and oscillate in between at any point. So what I'm looking to do is take a very long strategy with my Bitcoin holdings, not get spooked when it drops, hold fast and stay still, and then just dive in opportunistically. If it goes low, I buy. If it If it feels like it's relatively high, I might sell a bit to lock in some profits and then buy some more. So, you know, I see the trajectory as relatively positive, but only if you are willing to hold and wait for the panic to pass.
Davi Barker.
I predict that the people of Thailand will completely ignore their government's ban on Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin will continue to be traded, you know, enthusiastically on the streets of Thailand.
Excellent. Derek J.
I expect within at least the next week that Bitcoin will stay above 120 despite more profit taking, and I am up. I believe that Bitcoin will break 200 again within the week.
Bitcoin popularity and usage will continue to grow. Once you start using Bitcoin, you can't stop using it. More and more people are getting the Bitcoin bug. Bitcoin is unstoppable. We're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.